Hey folks, Hugo here. Today I'm going to show you how I produced the song Telepathy by my band Paradise Drive. It's going to be a fun little video. I'm going to show you what we did. Alright, so here we have the session pulled up. There's a lot going on here, but there really isn't that much going on. So we can kind of go through it a little bit and kind of show you what's where and how we did things. Okay, so you get the idea of the intro. So the intro kind of starts out with these drums. So let's see here. So what I used for drums is I used Get Good Drums. This is Get Good Drums Modern and Massive. So all I used from Modern and Massive was the kick, snare, tom, and other tom. But for the most part, we have cymbals and hi-hats that are recorded as real drums. So basically, in my drummer's house, we spent some time. His name is Chris Jaws. We basically set up these mics over the drum kit in his living room, and we did it the whole DIY setup. But here is just the cymbals. We recorded every single drum, but then I took the drums and then replaced them and then put them in MIDI. So just here is the drums raw without any MIDI or anything. So it's just the cymbals and the hi-hat. I deleted all the other fundamental drums like the kick and the snare drum and the toms. So let's just hear how it sounds without the MIDI. So as you can hear, it's just all cymbals, but then you add the MIDI drums, and it's just a whole different kind of punch. And of course, there were times where he didn't hit the cymbal where I wanted him to, so I ended up adding these crash cymbals. So now that you know how kind of the drums came out, they came out pretty well. I'm super pleased with them. And of course, with Modern and Massive, you can really make them huge because they have these different reverbs that you can add to them. In terms of the folder, that's the summing stack, I just put in this compressor by Black Rooster Audio, and it's mainly just for color. I don't really use compressors too much the way you're supposed to use them. I literally just use them to add some flavor. So I added that, and then because I just kind of felt like it wasn't enough, I added another compressor. So here we have the Studio Effect compressor by Logic, and I honestly didn't do much. I don't know if I moved any of these. I put the distortion at soft, and then I turned the mix knob down to about 40%, just so it wasn't absolutely crushing the already pre-existing drums. And we can kind of hear how it sounds just without this specific compressor, because you can kind of hear a slight difference. It just kind of gives a little bit more sustain to the drums, and the color is pretty sick. It makes it kind of like sound a little more analog and real, you know. So that part's sick. I'm really stoked about that. And I think in this intro too, I also have this little dance thing I added. Just kind of give it some motion, you know. See if I can loop that and then add the drums. Then the vocal call-outs kind of begin, and I just thought that's kind of cool. It was kind of cool to leave them in. to create a little section there where the vocals are doing just kind of playing off and giving a precursor for the chorus, where I'm saying, can you feel my heartbeat, my telepathy? So we can kind of hear that, how that sounds together, and then I'll let you hear it isolated. Can you feel my heartbeat, my telepathy? Cool. Then I just solo it, just kind of hear how that sounds. Can you feel my heartbeat, my telepathy? Can you feel my heartbeat? So I added a CLA effects because it's super simple. They have all the flavors you need. Put a filter, a little bit of crunch, distortion, and I turned off all the other settings just because I didn't really need them. And the EQ that I put afterwards, I kind of gave it a little bit more air, and then I cut the lows. Just because. And then in terms of reverbs, we can kind of take a look. So I added a delay, which is a tape delay. Can you feel my I'll take off the reverb. My telepathy. So it was more of like a slap back, not really a long tail. And I think I did that just so I can cut through a little more, because it kind of gets a little washy, I realized. Can you feel my heartbeat? My telepathy. Can you feel my heartbeat? Give it more of like that room kind of sound. If I bring back the reverb, in the other reverb I added another, on this, this bus, I added a longer delay. So I just turned off the reverb. Can you feel my heartbeat? Nice little stereo delay there to let it engulf your ears, you know. And then what do we have here? We have a vocal hall, which I think I left the settings pretty much the same, but I tweaked them a bit. Let's see how that sounds without the delay. Can you feel my heartbeat? So it's subtle, you know, it's not too crazy. It kind of sounds like a plate reverb, which I think was what I was trying to go for. Logic plugins seem to be my go-to when it comes to reverb. I have Valhalla and all that crap, but you know, Logic does a great job. So. Can you feel my heartbeat? My telepathy. And of course, let's not forget the risers. That makes it kind of brings together that intro section to the verse. You can't miss those. So then we get into the verse, the bass comes in, and then the main groove just continues on. Then we have some synths. So I'll start by kind of showing you the bass with the drums, and then kind of bring in the vocals. I am terrestrial. So this is a MIDI bass, punk bass, super cool plugin. I enabled the amplifier setting, and then here there's a little knob where you can toggle it, and it's the setting, it's first bass. This one, Teen Fuzz, was too distortion-y. This at least gives a nice crisp string kind of sound. And so So there's a kind of a lot going on with this bass, but I can kind of explain it just so it makes sense. So obviously first I put the Pro Q to kind of see if I could mess with the frequencies a little bit, just to kind of see what some of these presets do in FabFilter. I think I just used a preset and kind of moved it around until I found out what I liked listening to. After that, I have this compressor, which is again the FET compressor, except I have the mix turned all the way up, auto gain, and that's just for color. Gives it more of that beef. And so after I have all of that kind of sounding nice, I then put this compressor, which is, I think, yeah, the Platinum Digital Reverb, or not Reverb, the Platinum Digital Modeler, I guess you want to call it, that type of compressor. And I basically sidechained it. So I created a separate kick track from my drums, and then I muted it. And then I sidechained this compressor to this kick sidechain, because then every time the kick hits, the bass, the volume of the bass is going to dip a little bit every time that kick happens. And so then you're able to hear the kick more, as opposed to having it all just be super muddy. And I can kind of show you how that works. So if I turn this compressor off, and I did that because it adds a little bit of glue, you know, it really kind of gives that dimension. Other than that, it sounds like two-dimensional. There it sounds a little three-dimensional. It seems like you're actually at a gig, you're actually at a show, like a rock show, and you're hearing the kick kind of eliminate the bass when the kick is going. I don't know if you've ever been to like a live rock show, you'll hear the kick and then the bass for some reason just disappears for that 1 second. Or that, not even that second, that micro millisecond every time that kick hits. So that's pretty straightforward. Then I have these different synths going on. Yeah. You know, arpeggiated stuff along with some carpet sounds. And that's just all texture, you know. It's like, a lot of times it's fun to just kind of fill space, or at least to give it more of that oomph. And I think Paradise Drive, my band, has a lot of that atmosphere, space, outer space kind of retro vibes going on. That's exactly what I wanted to portray here. Vocals, very simple. All you have is one main vocal, and then you have two doubled robot vocals, which are panned on each side. So let's take a look at the main vocals. I am terrestrial, you are celestial. So much compression, it's unreal. And so I literally just used this plugin, the JJP vocal plugin, and I just messed around with that. I always used to think that you needed to load up your vocal plugin, and honestly you can, and I think that's the way to do it. But something I realize is they create these tools for a reason. If you can use them to make your stuff sound good, then all power to you. And so I used the de-esser on this, but I also added another de-esser because as I'm singing this, I notice I have a lot of the sibilants coming out of my own mouth. So I really had to spend a lot of time trying to, you know, get that sounding right. So yeah, let's see how that sounds again. I am terrestrial, you are celestial. I got my soul on the ground, and my substance in sound. So basically I use this plugin, and then I use the other plugins here to do some corrective EQ, and then I have this plugin, the Magnetite tape emulator, to give it more warmth, because you can never have enough warmth. And this also helps me make it louder, right? And I don't know if people can really hear the difference. I hear the difference, but also it's a pretty cool plugin, you know, when you're actually going and mixing, because it looks really cool. I am terrestrial. I mean, come on, it spins. It's pretty sick. So after this de-esser, I put this just channel EQ, and again I'm like cutting out more of the lows, literally at 35, kind of taking a dip into this 100 to 200 range to kill the mud. Then I have the 3K dip a little bit just so I can kill some of those harsh frequencies, and then a little bit more air. I have a deeper voice. I need to be able to hear a little more of the highs in that, so that's what I did there. If we take a look at this robot vocal, this I believe is just this exact vocal line, except I added this vocal transformer plugin and I just pitched it down. So if we take this off, and I can just use this one. I am terrestrial. Oops. I am terrestrial. See, and then I pan both of them. I am terrestrial. If you hear that on the right side, this vocal transformer just brings the pitch down, and it kind of sounds robotic-y, and also it helps mitigate the phase issues when you have two of the same track that are stacked on each other. And I believe that I also delayed, so I delayed this one 28 ticks, and this one I delayed 18 ticks, but also added this vocal transformer, so then you kind of hear a little bit more of that stereo image without it being at, mono, because it's all in or out of phase, canceling each other out. So let's see how that sounds. I am terrestrial. So there's still a little bit of that phase, but because they're both kind of doing the same thing, but the vocal transformer is acting in different ways, there's a slight variation, which kind of makes it sound like a chorus. So I add them, I am terrestrial, and it's just to add a little extra beef on the main vocal line. I am terrestrial, you are celestial, I got my soul on the ground. You get the idea. So then we kind of move into this pre-chorus / transition. You don't look back when you float away, when this isn't where you're supposed to stay. You're in my head when I'm... Can you feel my heartbeat for you through my telepathy? You're in my head when I'm asleep. Can you feel my heartbeat for you through my telepathy? So these backup vocals, I left for the most part dry. I don't think I had too many effects going on. All I did is I left them dry and added so I added a compressor. I added this tape emulator plugin again, de-esser to kill the harsh sibilances, and then again more not corrective EQ, but just kind of EQ to kill the lows and then boost the highs so it gives it some air so it can cut through the mix a little better. And I believe all of these were recorded with that the JJB plugin from Waves, and then bounced out normally. So yeah, and I just did that a bunch of times. Let's see what I had here. In my head when I'm asleep. Totally not tuned, but that's the magic of it. And then we have two lows. In my head when I'm asleep. Which is good because you don't want it too perfect. You're in my head when I'm asleep. Harmonies. Feel my heartbeat for you through my telepathy. All together. You're in my head when I'm asleep. Now we add the main vocals. Can you feel my heartbeat for you through my telepathy? So yeah, I basically did that throughout the entire song for the vocals. Let's move into the guitars since we didn't really get a chance to check those out. So here, what I'm using for guitars is I'm using the Archetype Noli by Neural DSP. It was on sale and I got it, and it's so killer. Like, I have guitar rig, I have great gear here, but this thing is sick. It's simple, it's all I need. And for guitars, I don't think you need anything fancy. So we had my buddy Skip played guitar on this track, and he nailed it. I played some guitar too, but I just want to highlight here what we did. And then we took the DI, and I think I used Guitar Rig for some of the tracks too, but whenever I could get DI, I put through that, and then prior to getting that plugin, I used, what's it called? Guitar Rig. So let's hear what he did here. And it's simple. It's just that and the bass doing the same thing. And then we have this transition, which he plays. This is how it originally sounded. Let's see here. This is how it originally sounded. Let's do that again. And I thought that was really cool, but then there was something that told me chop it up and see how it sounds. So then I took what he did and then did some of the choppy over here. Did some Fruit Ninja kind of stuff. Oops, sorry, I was talking there. And again, just kind of brings that tension together, you know. You're supposed to stay. Then here, he plays power chords. And then we have some interesting guitar layers here that he added. Oops. And then the second verse, it's a little different. The guitars change, everything else is basically the same. I decided to cut out this palm muting stuff and do something a little different. So here we have this delay, which I played on the guitar. Delay guitar, stereo delay, kind of takes away from the mix so we can add more things later on, right? You had that stereo spread of the guitar. If you had more of it, it would have just taken away from the song, and it would have been harder to add any other nuances. So in the second section, I feel like it was better to just try different things. So I added that and took away his guitar playing there, but he had something that he did, a lead part, which I'll let you hear that right now. Valhalla, Vintage Verb, Chaotic Hall. I didn't want to make it too ambient, otherwise it wasn't going to cut. It was just going to wash up the mix even further. Then I added a little bit of corrective EQ with Pro Q, and it sounds killer. This was done with Guitar Rig, and it sounds fantastic. He nailed it. So let's see what we have here. For guitars, then we stop that, and then he does something else. And then of course, let's not forget I added another guitar layer because why not? So you heard his, right? Stacked, I have a delay going on myself. And then there's just a whole lot going on there, but you know, that's what makes Paradise Drive Paradise Drive, is the multiple guitar layering, two different guitarists doing different things. And then I have a piano going on in there too, so we can check this out. Actually, let me point out here, there's a little break that I added to kind of give it some character. There's this little, there are these risers, and then this boom with this filter sweep thing. Now they're a band from outer space. Now we're a band from outer space, Paradise Drive is. So, yeah, so I did that, and it sounded cool, kept it, and then the whole song just goes in. Here, during the second verse, there is that piano part, which is kind of cool. It's a nice ambient piano that adds more character on top of what the guitars are doing, and it's a nice focus while the guitars are hanging out in the background. They had their time to shine. Now you have this piano that's going to be coming in. Let's see here. Show you what I got. Alright, I started out with an EQ. I chose the bright piano setting, and I think I tweaked it a little bit. After that, we have the magnetite for flavor, color, a little bit of a flutter, so it kind of wobbles a tiny bit, I believe. Yeah, it gives it a little bit of that modulation, which is nice. What do we have here? Tape delay. Why do we have a tape delay? Wow, I had a tape delay that wasn't even on. It was dry at 100%, wet, nothing. So that was a waste of some space, but it's alright. It worked out. It sounded cool anyway. So then we have this Valhalla reverb. Let me enable all these plugins. And this is a cathedral sound. Now this one I wanted more ambience. I wanted a higher decay. I believe I raised the modulation a little bit, and then the mix at 26%. Magic. Absolute magic. Alright, you have that all going together. Here, I'll kind of start halfway through so you can hear I just want to take a second and talk about these harmonies right here. So, I didn't have any harmonies at one point, and I wanted to do it originally just that first verse, and then I was in my room. I think I'd just gotten sick at that point. I got my simple SM58 microphone, and I just kind of sang into it while my roommates were home, and it was just, I wanted to be as quiet as possible, so you'll hear this harmony not super great, but again, through a lot of processing and it being kind of a backup, far in the distance kind of harmony, you really, it really doesn't matter how good you sing it, and it really doesn't matter what microphone you use, because it's going to be in the back. In my head, what you said echoes in my dreams. A catastrophic hope decay, the murmurs of the words I'd say. I did a lot of vocal moving too, like shifting, pitch shifting, because that is a little sneaky trick to kind of be really quick about making harmonies. I actually think, now going back to it, I believe this one might have been this first track, but just pitch shifted to be a harmony. In my head,
what you said echoes in my dreams. A catastrophic hope decay, the murmurs of the words I'd say. If you could only hear my voice, my heart, my everything.
Yeah. Like I said, man, when you're home sick and you just gotta get something out, you gotta like just do it. And you know what? The fact that it fluctuates so much in tuning makes it stand out. You know, you want your first main track to be the best takes you can make them. So yeah, all together, these two vocal lines.
A catastrophic hope decay, murmurs of the words I'd say. If you could only hear my voice, my heart, my everything.
Butter. Literal butter. Okay, so after the chorus, we get into this bridge. Alright, let's do the drums and the bass. Again, like layers, you know, that's what the whole gist of it is. If we unmute everything, we kind of hear what's going on here. Here there was a clean ambient I did on the guitar. A guitar rig with their cool spreading ambient reverb. I bounced it since I don't have it in the settings anymore. It's too bad, but it was great. I took that, reversed it, and then added it on top of that, or on bottom of it. Sounds like meditation music. Put them together. Sounds like you're in a giant cavern. So, yeah, and then vocals, I just kind of took this vocal line my friend Johnny kind of came up with and did it. I'm singing my own vocal style, put this CLA telephone vocal on it, and it worked out.
Even if our souls never meet, doesn't mean our lives are incomplete.
So yeah, simple, right? Didn't want to do too much crazy stuff on that. And then the chorus comes in. We can kind of hear the chorus out for a little bit.
You're in my head when I'm asleep. Can you feel my heartbeat pull you through my telepathy?
So yeah, this is the outro, and the way it begins is it has these, I mean, it has everything from the intro plus this ending vocals, which is just a bunch of takes of me doing O's. And again, I didn't make them super present. I put them a little bit in the back to kind of be a nice chant at the end, you know? So when you're playing a live show, everyone can do it with you. Guitars, they're doing their thing. Had to add that melody in there, because why not? that's where Skip was doing two different things at the same time, kind of varying it up, and it sounds super freaking cool. So that's basically it, you know. Kind of move into the very end, and the fill. The fill's my favorite part. Fire, absolutely fire. Played by Chris on the drums, and then of course we took the best takes he did, chopped him up a lot, and that's where the whole song basically came together. So, yep, one more thing I'll do, so show you the mastering chain, or I guess the mix bus as they call it. I'm still kind of getting the hang of all this terminology since it's all kind of stuff I learned from here and there. So I think I chose a preset, modern rock, and then I went in and plugged in different things and just kind of made it my own. You know, the very first thing I added, of course, was this magnetite, because I love the colors that adds to it. Pro Q, and then basically in the mix bus, I'm just taking out a lot of the high frequencies, if there are any, right? In the multipressor, I'm dropping this, or multi-band compressor, I guess. I'm dropping, what is that? That's the 1K range, I guess. Dropping that a lot more, and that's killing a lot of the mud. Bringing down a little bit of the, let's see, 1K to 5K, I don't know, 1K to something K, I don't know. And that is taking out a lot of the harsh, I want to say mid-range. Raising a little bit of the high, raising a little bit of the low. That gives it that pop style mix punch, I guess, that EQ curve. And then, see, we have the multipressor, and then Space Designer. I don't know, I think I just left this. It doesn't really do anything. Yeah, I should have just taken that out. Yep, don't need that. And then, of course, finally the limiter, where I pushed the gain so that I could end up with a reading of about, let's see here. Yeah, so I think integrated was about 8 or 9 LUFs, and I did that because I hear that it doesn't really matter how loud you get, and I'm just trying to push the mix to the point where I can get it as loud as possible without making it distort. So I think that definitely helps give the mix some punch. But that's the song, that's Telepathy. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was quite extensive, but I feel that it is a nice little intro to kind of show how these songs get created, and there are more to come. So I'm Hugo, thanks again for watching.